Hey everyone, welcome. I'm so excited to be here. I can't wait to paint with you guys. So hopefully you either got the file or got the blanks and are ready to go. Just give me 1 second. I always like to make sure I have it on the right page and I'm doing this correctly. And I think everything is set, so welcome. If you are new and don't know who I am Dawn Marie with Sign Parties 101, and I teach you guys how to start and grow your own DIY sign party business. So I just wanted to come on here and paint tonight with you guys. This is what we're making, this little boo sign, and it's so cute and so easy to do. I'm going to show you a little bit of a distress technique that I like to do with baby wipes. And yeah, so I'm excited to have you guys join in. I think I can see the comments every once in a while. Facebook doesn't like to show me them until after the live is over. But I think I can see them. So if you jump on, say hi to me and tell me where you're watching from so I can say hi to you. So I'm gonna move this down a little bit. You guys, is it supper time where you're at? I was thinking about that right before I started because my husband is making dinner and I can smell it. I'm out in my office, which is in the garage, but there's a vent that goes into the house and it literally smells so good, you guys. And of course he's making chili, which is kind of like a fallish sort of thing. So I am probably gonna get hungry by the time this is done. But do you say supper or do you say dinner? For supper, for the evening meal, because that's one thing. So I live in Idaho and I grew up in Minnesota, and there it was breakfast, lunch, and supper, or breakfast, dinner, and supper. And so my dinner was like noontime. So if my mom said be home by dinner, it was by lunchtime. And here, dinner is supper. And so I've had to kind of catch myself. Hey, Danielle. You guys, Danielle is a rock star. She orders my MDF and she has been doing amazing because you've been getting so much. So that's awesome. Hey, Karis. Reno, you're not too far from me. That's like within a drive. Okay, so I am going to bring this down a little bit. And we are going to get started with baby wipes. So if you guys are not doing baby wipes yet, you should try it because it's my favorite way to paint a base, especially if you're working with something smooth like MDF. So, and because I like to reuse, does anybody use the back of their paper plates when they're doing it themselves? I do. So I'm just going to put some paint on my paper plate, and these are all folk art paints that I'm using. I like that because it's a little bit thicker than some normal acrylic paint, so we're gonna use that. I just take the baby wipe, wrap it around my fingers, dip it into my paint, and make sure you can see this, and then just wipe it on. Now, this first coat, I like to do 2 coats, and the first one is going to be pretty thin, so you won't need to make sure that it's perfect. You won't have to do that. Again, I say this in all my videos, but if you know me, I don't like to be perfect. I like rustic, I like not perfection. That is one thing. My dad is a woodworker and my mom is a quilter, and I did not get any of that perfectionism from them at all because I am more of like, it looks good enough. So that's going to be the first coat. You're still going to be able to see some of the wood underneath, and that's totally fine. Before it dries, even on this first coat, I like to take a toothpick, a weeding tool, something like that, and go across these lines and get the paint that got stuck in there out. So you can see the difference that makes. You know, there's a line right there and you can't see it. So I'm gonna just take this, run it through that line so you can see it again. And we'll do this on the second coat as well. But I just wanted to get it out of the way on that first coat. So if you use very little paint, this should be almost dry. So Is it kind of weird that you guys can't see my face when I'm talking? So don't use a lot of paint for your first one. I'll let this dry just another minute or so, and then just go back over it with a second coat. But that's the nice thing about not using too much paint, is that it dries really quickly, which is nice if you're doing this at parties, or even for kits, so then people don't have to wait around for forever. But if you do use too much, or you want to wait for it to dry, set this aside and start working on something else in the meantime. And since we already have the white paint out and on the baby wipe, I'm just gonna use this again for my ghost. So same thing, I'm just gonna dip it in. You don't have to use the baby wipe on smaller things like this. I'm just going to because I already have it out. Otherwise I'd use a sponge. But I'm just going to get the first coat on here with a baby wipe. Ta-da, already done. See how fast that is? I love, love, love using the baby wipe. Okay, and that's the only thing we're gonna do white. So I'm just gonna go back to this guy now that it's dry, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna dip it in to the paint and wipe it on. And the second coat really does make a difference. I'll show you guys the difference in the first and second coat. And I'm not using a lot of paint, but look at that. That second coat, first coat. So you see how that second coat just really brightened it up? That's why we want to do a second coat. This is one of my favorite colors from Folk Art. It's warm white. I use that for the base all the time. That or apple barrel antique parchment. Pretty much the same. It's not like a stark white. It has just a little bit of a cream in it, but it's not yellow at all, which is what I like in an off-white color. Again, you can see the difference. First coat, second coat. So that's why I like doing the second coat. If you want to leave it a little bit more rustic looking, or not so white, or whatever color you're doing the base, then that's fine to do the first coat and just leave it like that. But I wanted this pretty white, so I'm also going to distress it a little bit with the black. So again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you see how my lines disappeared again? So I'm just going to take the weeding tool and go right over it. This is one of my favorite things. Speaking of favorite things, I had a friend who has been telling me for a long time that I have a friend. I shouldn't say I had a friend. I have a friend, she's still my friend, to do a favorite things video on my page, so I can talk about all my favorite things. Because if you guys know me or don't know me, I am a mom of 7 kids, and I have a lot of favorite things that I use, not only for my business, but also for my household and my kids and all that kind of stuff. And so I think I'm gonna start sharing that, like on Fridays. Maybe do a little thing of my top 3 favorite things. So anyways, this is gonna make the list at some point soon. It's my weeding tool. I get it from the Dollar Tree. So if you guys have one close, I think 2 come in a pack, and they're super nice to hold. I use these at parties. So anyway, side note. So this guy is done, except I'm going to add some black distressing to it, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. I'm going to set this aside, and then we're going to go back to this guy. Again, since I still have this, I'm just going to use the baby wipe to finish my little ghost. You can use a sponge if you want. Baby wipe for me is just faster and easier, but do whatever floats your boat. Okay, so ghost is done. I'm gonna set him aside. And then we're gonna bring out the black paint, and a lot of this stuff is gonna be black. So we have, you can see on here, the web is black, spider, the bee, and the little eyes and nose on the pumpkin and the ghosts and stuff. So we're gonna lay out everything, and even the stand that's going to be black. I like to kind of group things together. If you guys aren't doing the little tape trick with things that are small, I take a piece of painter's tape, or this is just masking tape, and set it down and then keep my little pieces on it. So, I mean, I'm a messy painter anyways, so I don't really care. But sometimes it's nice to make sure you're not losing the pieces or anything like that. Is just set the pieces on the tape and then you can paint them when they're on there. So this really isn't going to be that difficult since all of this is black. But, okay, so this time we're going to use a little wedge, little makeup wedge. And hey, Sherry from Maryland all the way across. And then we're just going to dab. The nice thing about black paint is that you don't have to worry. If you have a lasered item like these are, they're already dark on the edges. And so you don't have to worry about the paint going over the edge of the design. But if you were to be doing this white, for example, or any other color, like on my ghost, I really wanted to make sure that I didn't get any white on the edges. So if you saw me when I was doing the baby wipe, I was just kind of going in one direction, is because I didn't want to get any of that white paint on those edges. But with the black paint, you can't see the black paint on the edges, so it really doesn't matter. You can kind of be more messy with it, which is actually something that I like because I'm messy. So we'll probably end up doing 2 coats. I'm gonna do it a little bit thicker and maybe we'll get away with 1 coat. Again, we don't have to be as picky or as particular when it comes to the edges. So I can use a little bit more paint. And just for time's sake, maybe I just won't paint the stands. But if you were gonna paint the stands, I paint both sides because when you slide them together, you'll see both sides when they're standing, you know, this side and this side. So I just like to cover both sides black. Usually everything kind of matches black, so I usually just do it black. But yeah, super simple. You just do it both sides. Again, you don't have to really worry about the paint on the edges and so forth. So see how that simple that was? When they're stuck to the tape, you don't have to hold it with your fingers and then, you know, they're bouncing all over the place. You just dab them when they're on the tape, and then it works really well. And I think this is already dry, you guys. See, you can't, it's not even shiny. That's the nice thing about, you know, using less paint and not just globbing it on, is because it dries fast. And if you're impatient like me, you like paint that dries fast. That's why I use fast drying stain too. It's because it dries fast. Okay, so that's it. The black's already done. You see how fast this can go? So now I'm gonna set this aside. I'll just move it up. And I'm gonna grab my pumpkin. Now I am going to do, I think, a little mixture. I wanted to tone down this orange a little bit. So I have this other color, it's chestnut. So I'm gonna mix them together to see what that looks like. And if it's ugly, then I guess I'll just go back to the regular orange. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a Q-tip, which I have over here, and just kind of mix these colors together quick. The other thing that's nice about the acrylic paint on MDF, if you do it one time and don't like the color, just wait for it to dry and you can always just go over it again with the second coat of a different color or a different shade, and it'll just go right on the top. So see, I like that a lot better. It's kind of toned down. It's not so like bright orange. So with this color, I'm dabbing it on instead of, you know, wiping it with a baby wipe or anything. Again, paying attention to the edges. You can always clean it up afterwards with a baby wipe or even go over it with a marker. like a black or a brown marker on the sides if you accidentally get too much paint on the edges. But if you're kind of mindful of that, then it's not too hard to keep it off. Okay, so there's that. We could take a little bit, maybe we'll just take a little bit of that chestnut color and get a little bit on the top, so it's a little bit darker on the stem. Wait for that to dry, and then it's just gluing up, you guys. So while this dries though, I am going to do a little distressing on this because that's my jam. I like to distress all the things. And so one way that I like doing this is with a bristle brush, but I'm going to do it tonight with just the baby wipe that we already used to just kind of show you how to reuse your stuff that you already have and not waste any more material or supplies or anything like that. So I'm just gonna grab the baby wipe that I already used. This is the one that has the white paint on it. And I'm gonna just fold it over and kind of find a new spot. It doesn't really even matter. And then dip it into some of our black paint that we had. Okay, so there's a little bit on here. And now I'm gonna dab it off. So I just want very, very little paint on here. You can always add more. You can't always take away. So I start with very little paint. And then very lightly, I'm just going to brush it across my lines. And then I can always add, you see how that kind of created that? I hope you guys can't hear my kids. I have a few teenage boys in the garage right now. I should have told them to hush up before I came out here. So I'm just going to add it to the lines a little bit like that, and then just kind of go around the edges. Now the nice thing about this too is if you get too much, let's say you're like, oh shoot, that was too much black, I didn't want to do that much, you just fold this over and go back to the white part and kind of go right across and get some more white, or dip it into your white and dab it on and go over it again. But I'm gonna leave it like that because that's kind of how I like it. And so now the next thing, and then also keep in mind your design is gonna go on the sign, so some of the stuff will be covered up as well. But when I glue, what I like to do before I glue is set everything out on the sign how you want it to look, because it has happened more than once that you guys, I usually always mess it up because my fingers have like white paint on it. So anyways, it usually happens if I don't lay everything down is that I kind of start and then I realize I ran out of space or whatever. So I like to lay everything out on the sign how I want it to be before I glue down. Then you can kind of adjust if necessary and so forth. So we want these guys about like so. And even for these, you know, you might have an idea of like where you want them, and then you glue them down and then you realize you should have moved them over a little bit or whatever. So I always like to lay everything out on my sign. Now you can make the pumpkin happy, or you can turn the triangles upside down and make them mad. We'll make this guy happy. Okay, so this is about where I want everything. So now I'm ready to glue down, and then I'll use my marker and just add a couple lines to the ghost and the pumpkin once it's glued down. So, all right, this is what I like using when I'm doing my own stuff. Hey, Mandy from South Carolina. Where in South Carolina? Okay, South Carolina is my most favorite spot to go because every year I go to Hilton Head and it's amazing. I love it. from Georgia. Hey, Laura. First time catching you live. Yay, well, welcome. Okay, so this is what I use when I'm working by myself. It's Loctite Professional. You can get it anywhere. But do not use this when you send out kits, and don't use it at parties. The reason why I say that is because it is super sticky and there's like no forgiveness at all. And so if somebody sets it down and then says, oops, I want to move it, if you're using this stuff, you can't. It's like, it's down there. So I use this for my stuff, but I don't use it at parties or anything. I just use wood glue or a super wood glue or something like that, but not this stuff. But this stuff works really well if you are confident in your gluing abilities and need something to stick fast. And you don't need a lot of it either. So that little bottle lasts a long time. So you just set it down and then like, ta-da, it's already stuck. So definitely, and do not glue your fingers together. I have done that more than once, but I will say I have learned that keeping a bottle of lemon essential oil handy is a very good thing when you're working with this, because if you accidentally glue your fingers together, lemon oil will keep it apart. Yes, and people waste it. That is correct. All right, so glue the bee down. Glue these little guys. Again, when you're working with something little like this and you have something this strong, you do not want to trust other people with it. Just kind of think to yourself, like, would I give this to my 4-year-old to play with? And if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't let people at a party play with it as well or use it, because most of the time, people at the party will act like children. And I'm not saying that like in a bad way, but I'm saying that in a way of like, most people don't know what they're doing as far as crafts go and that sort of thing. And so they need to be very careful with this. So it's just better to stick with a wood glue. All right, so now that these guys have their eyes and mouths, now we can glue this down. Now you can go like this if you want, you know, you can rearrange these guys. I just figure orange is kind of like the focal point. And so when I was putting it together, it felt the best to do the orange in the middle. So Sherry, hang on, I have to see your comment. You glued your fingers together and you remember me talking about the lemon oil, so she grabbed hers and used to get the glue off. Good. Well, I'm glad it worked for you too. I was actually really kind of nervous the first time that I glued my fingers together because it was bad. They were like legit stuck like this, like there was no getting it off. So thank heavens for that lemon oil, which really helped. So, okay, you guys, ta-da! So now, again, if you're using the stand, you don't have to. You can just prop this up, or you could put a little back on it, hang it up, whatever. But if you are using the stand, you just put them together like that. I would paint mine black. And then you can just go like that and set it in the stand. So there we go. Cute. Now I have another sign to give away. Oh, here, I was gonna make the little lines. Okay, so if you're doing any sort of markers, these Posca pens are one of my favorites. They work really well. You can get them in different tips. I think I have them in my Amazon store. If I don't, I'll go add them when I'm done. But if you go to amazon.com/shop/signparties101, you'll see all the stuff that I like to use for parties and so forth. And And so I think I'll just add, I mean, you can add whatever you want, but I'll just add a little thing on the side there, and maybe one down here, one on the ghost, just give it a little bit of dimension. But yeah, that's it. You guys, it's so adorable. Okay, so if you painted along with me, I want you to comment on this video and let me see your picture. I may pick out somebody to send something to. But if you just followed along or watched, I'm glad you are here. And I am going to be doing paintings every week for a while. So hopefully you don't get sick of me. And yeah, there's your finished product. So have a great night, you guys. I'm gonna go inside and eat that chili now. That smells so delicious in here. Hope you guys have a great night. Thanks for joining me, and we'll talk to you soon.